I bought this house in Spain for 20,000 euro, this house for 5,000 euro, and this house for 9,000 euro. That's 34,000 euro for 3 houses in Spain. Hi, my name is Nicole. Welcome to my channel Travel to Money. In today's video, I want to explain how I found these houses, my thoughts on why I got such good deals, different ways that you can look for deals, and just helping you to understand what makes a deal right for you. So let's jump in with house number one. I found this house in 2018 listed for just under 20,000 euro on the website idealista.com. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. Not only was it a 3-story townhouse, but it didn't need too much work, and more importantly, it had incredible views. I don't know about you, but a view plus the aesthetic of a house means everything to me. I was sold. But then I called the agent who was selling it, and he was like, the house is okay, but the street is colorful. Then he went on to tell me that maybe I should take a look at some other houses. I said, well, I have $25,000. And he said, well, then this is the house for you. But then I followed up by asking what I thought was most important about the street. Is it safe? He was like, oh, yeah, it's safe. It's just not where most people want to live. All I could think about was the view. As long as I was safe and I could get to and from the house without a problem, whatever was happening on the street would be of little consequence to me. So I made a full price offer, asked that agent to go ahead and represent me as well, since there would be no conflict of interest, and he is the one who connected me with my real estate attorney, who I still use today. Of all the 3 houses I purchased, even though this was the most expensive of the 3, I still feel like it was the best value for the money. At the time, the US dollar wasn't doing all that well, so to finish purchasing the house cost me about a total of 25,000 US dollars. Then I spent somewhere between $5,000 and $6,000 to get the house into good condition. We tiled the bathroom and utility room, tiled the entire middle floor, painted furniture, built custom furniture, and other random projects to spruce up the house. It took me about 2 months of my time while working alongside my friend and contractor. It's important to note that I never had the intention of buying and flipping houses or ever buying more than just that one house in Spain. I had the house I wanted and I loved it. Now, the real estate agent was right. My street, not the best. Basically, there are a group of Romani people, sometimes referred to as gypsies, who live in some of the homes on the street. Some of these families are no different than mine, but some of them live in a way that can be a bit off-putting at times. He was also correct in saying that I was safe. I've never had a situation where I felt unsafe. It's one of those places that I recommend if you want a great deal and a good view and don't mind the occasional frustration from the street. Anyway, the great thing about the street is that because the Spaniards look down on the gypsies, they don't want to have anything to do with any of the houses on the street, which opens up opportunities for expats who don't seem to mind as much. And the nice thing about having a bunch of expats around you is that you have this built-in community. So that's something I really like about my street. Anyway, let's get on and talk about house number 2. Like I mentioned before, I never intended to buy additional houses, so I wasn't looking. One day, my friend, who also owns a house on the street, called me and said the house directly next door to mine was for sale. Now, I had seen this house from my porch several times over the years. This kind of house is referred to as a derelict, meaning in very poor condition as a result of disuse or neglect. The owner had purchased it in this state and had already remodeled the front of the house and the roof, but the rest of it was in shambles, needing a complete renovation from top to bottom. So he tells me that the owner is selling it for 10,000 euros. And that sounds cool, to buy a house for 10,000 euros. But I wasn't in the market for another house, and I would need way more than 10,000 euros to actually get that house into shape. More time goes by, and I should also mention that this is during the pandemic, so I'm sure getting people to come see the house felt nearly impossible. Well, in late 2021, my friend calls me again and says that the owner dropped the price on the house to 5,000 euros. And I thought, well, how can I pass that up? I don't need a house, but for 5,000 euros, even if I turned it into a storage unit or a garage and just fixed it up a bit, that alone is worth it for the value of my house right next door. So I decided to go for it. It took a while to get across the finish line with the closing on that house, so it was summer of 2022 when I officially became the owner. And from there, my friend and I began to do some work on that house, slowly doing renovation projects, starting with some structural work. I was in Spain in April of 2023, and my friend Carl Pierre from ENTP Life was coming to visit Pego, film some videos with me, and he also wanted to see some houses in the area that were for sale. One of those houses was just two more doors up from the $5,000 house. My friend had mentioned that it was for sale online for 28,000 euro, and so we scheduled a showing where Carl could see the house and film it. Now, the story behind this house was that it was last sold for somewhere around 80,000 euro just a few years before. The woman who owned it was older and from the UK. During the pandemic, when she wasn't allowed to visit for a couple of years, the home was broken into by squatters, and she was having to deal with that long distance, which I think was a bit overwhelming for her. The good news is that the squatters didn't do anything to harm the house at all, they just lived in the empty space. Not long after the squatters were removed, the roof of the house collapsed. It was just very poorly engineered with different types of roofing materials all stacked on top of each other and ultimately too much weight for the wooden beams. So the owner had decided that she was done with it and just wanted to get it off her hands. On the morning that we went to go film the house, we find out from my friend that the house has been dropped to the price of 18,500 euro. I'm like, cool. Honestly, I didn't really care. I just wanted Carl to have a good house to see and film. So when we were in the house, I wasn't really even paying attention to anything. A few days later, I was getting ready to leave Spain and head back to the US when my friend called me to say that the real estate agent offered the house to him for just 9,000 euro. I was pretty floored. So he and I talked about maybe going in on the house together and flipping it, or several options that were similar to that. Ultimately, he decided that it wasn't for him. I sat on it for a day or so, and I was sitting on the plane on the runway in Valencia when I called my friend and said, I think I'd like to buy it if you can get the agent to honor the same deal with me. But I needed a plan. I'm working hard toward financial independence, but I don't have unlimited amounts of money just sitting around to renovate multiple houses. I knew this house was going to at least need a new roof and a new kitchen, so I decided that I would sell the first house in order to be able to afford the renovations on the third house, and I would make the third house my permanent home. The really cool thing is that I had met so many wonderful people from Instagram who were interested in the area, and I got a chance to call my favorites and see if they were interested in buying my first home. Picking out my very own neighbors is super fun. I still think that original house was the best value for the money, but I'm having a lot of fun turning house number 3 into my dream house. It is, however, turning out to be quite a bit more work than I initially anticipated, but that's just life. So after I started talking about how I purchased a house in Spain for 5,000 euro, a lot of people didn't believe me. They would go online and then write to me and say, I don't see any houses for 5,000 euro. And I'm like, yeah, it's not like there's a website for that. But what I would say is not what most people are going to want to hear. And that is that if you want the best deals, you have to get to know people and build relationships. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to buy either my second or my third house if it wasn't for having an amazing friend. I owe him coffees for life. But the truth is, there are always deals. Every single house and every single person who owns them has a different situation. You just never know what you might find if you really start looking. And I'm learning that right here in the US from my friend Jeremy Resmer, who is co-hosting my real estate podcast with me. He bought 12 acres of land in Florida for $14,000. He's doing deals all the time because he finds out what people need and he makes offers that work for everyone. So my encouragement to you is to first watch my recent video on my top 7 tips for buying a house in Spain, and then start meeting people, asking questions, and building relationships. If your goal is a killer deal, you're not likely to find it just chilling on some website somewhere. Have conversations and don't be afraid to make offers, even if a house isn't up for sale. You never know who your offer might be right for. Now, let me say one last thing. You can find good deals on websites. There are still great houses at a great value with plenty of places to see under 100,000 euros. But if you're on a super tight budget between 10 and 30,000 euros, that's where you need to get a bit more creative and implement everything I've mentioned here today. Well, my friends, tell me what you think in the comments, like this video, and subscribe to join me every day where travel and adventure build financial freedom. I can't wait to see where your dreams will take you.